Hi guys, I'm Dr. Downey and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be discussing 300 milligram versus 600 milligram a week testosterone cycles. So I just thought I'd make this video because I had a discussion yesterday and I realized that popular YouTubers are promoting this low dose trend, which is great, and I definitely recommend it. However, assuming that, let's say, 300 is better tolerated or just better than 600 is actually quite false, because the study that is commonly shown by someone like More Plates, More Dates is interpreted incorrectly, perhaps. So whilst I'd always suggest you start with a lower dose such as 300, I would titrate up based on your side effects and see how the 300 treats you and whether or not you can bear those side effects before increasing it. And if you can't, then you'd have to stack, I would say. But 300 should be tolerated by most, and you'll see why. The reason that 300 milligrams is commonly reported to be better than 600 milligrams is this concept of diminishing returns. So I'm just going to use this study to prove why this is false. So the study has a few groups. They have a 25, 50, 125, 300, and 600 group. I'm going to look more at the 300 and 600 group. And so they were injected with 300 or 600 milligrams of testosterone a week for 20 weeks. So first of all, just to clear it up, I know most know it, but for those who don't know, if you're new to steroids and such, any dose will shut you down regardless. The 25 milligram group, as you can see in the luteinizing hormone, it had decreased significantly in all groups, and that's displayed with the p-value at the end on the right-hand side. So no matter what dose you use, you will be shut down. So we'll look at the free testosterone and compare the 300 to 600 group. Total testosterone is also a decent marker. However, free testosterone is the one that's actually going to do something, and I prefer looking at that because it's a better indicator of how testosterone is going to function in the body. So in the 300 group, you can see that there was a change from baseline that was significant. However, it just put the individuals still within range of normal free testosterone. There are tons of different ranges, so some ranges go from 32 to 168 picograms per milliliter, but there are some that also go up to 220 picograms per milliliter. So the 300 group did not put any individual in a supraphysiological range for their free testosterone. However, as you can see, 600 milligrams did put those in a 300 in a significant free testosterone, or did result in a significant increase in the free testosterone up to a supraphysiological range. So this concept of diminishing returns, you would assume that as you increase the dose from 125, let's say, to 300, the increase in free testosterone would be less and less. However, you can see that from the 300 to 600 group, there's like about a triple time the gain in free testosterone from baseline. So again, I'll represent another reason why the diminishing returns is simply not true. As you can see in the fat-free mass by the DEXA scan, there was an underwater measurement taken. However, the DEXA scan is gold standard in this case. So as you can see about the fat-free mass, there was a significant increase in all groups. Oh no, not the top two groups, but there was a gain in about 8.5 kilograms for the 300 group and 8.9 for the 600 group and 2.9 for the 125 group. So if we use this, there's approximately, let me just try to calculate this, a 3.4 kilogram difference between these two groups and about a 2 and a bit kilogram difference between the 125 and 300. Now 125 isn't directly smaller, isn't a half the size of 300, it's about 2.4 less than 300 milligrams, so that would result in the change to be around the 3 kilogram mark also. So, however, with the concept of diminishing returns, you would expect the gain to be slowly decrease. However, that wasn't displayed as it still increases, and in terms of the fat mass, there was no significant decrease in fat mass change for the 125 or 300 milligram group. However, in the 600 milligram group, it was significant. So you can see here I encircled the p-values because both of these are more than 0.05, meaning they're not significant. However, the change in fat mass, which was a decrease of 2 kilograms, which is quite significant considering they were all on the same diet and same calorie intake, essentially. Same calorie intake per kilogram of body weight. So then again, you would expect there to be diminishing return, less fat gain also, which is not true. They did do this study with power and strength change, but I've seen those markers in previous studies, and the strength and power seem to be poor indicators of whether or not a steroid is working, just because with good programming, placebos who are not receiving any testosterone can gain almost as much as those receiving testosterone in terms of strength. So I don't think it's a great marker. So I remembered more plates, more dates. Perhaps I'm getting it wrong, but it doesn't have to be in direct response to him. But as you can see, there isn't really much of a diminishing return here, because you can't say whether or not 3 kilograms is significant, because according to the study, 3 kilogram difference is significant according to the p-values. But then one might argue that no, while the 600 milligram group would have more side effects than the 300 milligram group, so it's not worth the extra 3 kilos of body weight. Well, according to the study, there were no changes in liver enzymes, creatinine, blood pressure, or general health measures that they checked. PSA didn't change. However, HDL decreased in both the 300 and 600 milligram group. And in fact, more men in the 300 milligram group had back acne than that in the 600 milligram group. So, does that mean that the extra muscle is worth the sides? Well, there weren't really any additional side effects from the 300 to 600 group. Both of them were still, according to the researchers, healthy and didn't suffer any deleterious effects. And 3.4 kilograms to a frame that is lean kilograms. To most people, when they're on cycle, they'll say I gained this certain amount of kilograms because they look at the scale and they say that body mass didn't change that much. But most of that whilst on cycle is just water retention or electrolyte or glycogen retention, and 3.4 kilograms of actual lean contractile tissue is very significant and does change the frame of one's body a lot. So if the side effects are more or less the same for 300 versus 600, that 3.4 kilogram would make more sense to use the 600 over the 300. In addition, I just thought, this is more anecdotal, but I just thought it was interesting how mass monsters, these giant guys, or not necessarily mass monsters, just anyone over their natural limit of muscle tissue on their frame, tend to cruise it, although they may lie to you. Most pros, if you look in the past where they're probably a bit more honest than they are now, 500 milligrams was a typical cruise, and it went up to a gram of testosterone a week. And that would make sense according to the study, because the 300 milligram group, while still a lot for a cruise, did not put them, the individuals, in a significantly raised free testosterone range. So the initial recommendation of the 300 over 600 came from this study, and it was all based on the diminishing returns, which he showed not to be entirely true. And it's just seemed to be assumed in the bodybuilding forums that after 300 you're just going to get these compounded effects of blood pressure issue, kidney effects, things like that. But why? We shouldn't use this anecdotal saying from, although they may have experience with these compounds, I'd still trust a scientific study over expert opinion, because according to levels of research, studies are worth more than expert opinion. So I'll demonstrate using two other studies. One was the world-renowned study that showed that 600 tests in people who didn't train made them gain more or less the same as a group not on testosterone who did train. And from this group, all that happened was in the group receiving testosterone who did train, their creatinine did increase a bit, but they again did get the most gains in contractile tissue, which is directly correlated to creatinine levels in the blood. So, and surprisingly, the placebo group, who received nothing but trained, was the only one to experience a significant decrease in HDL. Again, there was another study where they looked at high-dose testosterone as a possible effective male contraceptive agent, and I'm not sure of the dose. I struggled to get access to this paper. I just mentioned high dose, but I know many studies referenced it, and in the study they had no adverse effects reported, and the study was done for 6 to 24 weeks. This again seems to give the 12-week cycle recommendation. It tends to put it in the category of outdated and not scientific either, because 16 to 24 weeks was well tolerated with few side effects. And side effects do accumulate, but apparently there were none between 16 and 24 weeks, and that is an actual scientific recommendation. Whereas a 12-week, I'm not too sure where that was initially came from. So that's everything there is out there that I could find to show you whether 300 or 600 is safer. My recommendation, rather don't use steroids if you don't have to. If you're just going to use them to look at it, that's what most people do, and I don't think you can judge anyone for doing that. But I think if you're going to use them, rather use the scientifically supported dose, as opposed to, let's say, YouTuber supported dose. And again, don't use TRT. Don't assume TRT is going to give you gains, because whilst it may help improve recovery and things, the gains in muscle are minimal, and the point of TRT is to literally replace your testosterone and keep it within range. So again, I don't recommend anyone use steroids, but if you are, rather start low but titrate up to a dose that does have studies behind it that show more muscle mass gain, because that is the point of the cycle, isn't it? And few side effects reported. So I hope I got my point across clear. I'm not recommending anyone do this. I just think if you are going to shut yourself down, you might as well opt for the more efficacious dose, and don't assume just because a YouTuber said it that 300 is going to give you massive side effects like estradiol and such, because from the estradiol and blood pressure and such, because that wasn't reported in these papers. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.